there and welcome to this tutorial. It's a quilt along cushion cover. Now this is a snug fit, so this is an 18-inch cushion cover, but if you wanted it to be a bit more looser, maybe use a 16-inch insert. These are all the pieces for the cushion, and I have these set of tabs so you can mark them all so you know exactly which piece is which. To get the instructions for all of these different parts, look on the description box down below and you will find them there. I also added some borders onto this cushion cover, and they are sections 1 and 2. So this is the little diagram that I made. This is going to make us an 18-inch cushion. So I'm going to show you how to put these pieces together, and I'm also going to show you how to do a nice envelope cushion cover. So I'm just going to grab all of my pieces. These are all for the front, and then this part F is for the back because we're going to end up quilting it, and then the two canvas sections. So this is canvas you can find at your local fabric store. I like to do the back of my cushions in canvas because it just does a nice structure to them so they stand up. So it's kind of like stabilizing them really. So just put your G, E and F sections to one side while we concentrate on just building the front right now. First of all, we're going to make our half square triangles. So this is B and D sections. That's going to be all of these sections here. I'll redo this so it's nice and pretty for you guys. We're going to make 4 half square triangles in one go. So I'm going to get my B and D, and we are going to take these two sections here, and you're going to put these right sides together. So right sides together means this, so you've got both of the pretty sides of the fabrics facing each other, like so. I am not paid nor sponsored in any part of this tutorial, so I am using a Baby Lock Soprano, and in the top of my thread I have a Gutermann polyester thread, and in my sewing needle I have a 9014 Microtex needle. I have my 1/4 inch foot with guide on here. I've got some bobbin thread in my bobbin, and I'm also going to set my machine to stitch 30. Oh, I have to press this one first and stitch 30. This is a 1/4 inch, and it's from the center, and I've got my 1/4 inch foot with guide on. Now if you don't have a 1/4 inch foot with guide, you can use 29 or 31. So whether you sew from the left hand side or the right hand side of your foot, it's going to be a perfect 1/4 inch. So just double check that your sewing machine is sewing to a 1/4 inch. In my coaster tutorial, right from the very start, I show you how to get this right. So go back and have a watch of that, the coaster, sorry. I was having to think, the coaster tutorial, and that'll show you how to get your 1/4 inch. So like I said, we've got these both right sides together, and what we are going to do is we're going to sew all the way around both of these with a 1/4 inch. I'm not going to pivot around, I'm going to sew completely off. And then put it back in, and then sew it again. So I'm going to do it exactly like that all the way around. Just cut all these threads away so they're nice and tidy. What I'm going to do is find my 45-degree angle on my cutting mat, and basically I'm going to line it up, turn my mat around slightly here, and I'm going to put my ruler right on that line and making sure that my points are on that 45-degree angle, and I'm going to cut across. When it comes to cutting a triangle, I like to get my point on a line up here, and then I am going to lay that down making sure that point is on that line, and making sure the bottom of the triangle is in line with one of these lines too, so everything's straight. And then once everything is correct, we can then take another cut. I'm going to do the same thing with the other triangle. What that's going to leave us with is 4 half square triangles. I'm going to do the same thing with this other unit, and I'll meet you back here when I'm done. We're going to open each of these units out and we're going to press them. Each of these units have a little triangle jutting out. We're just going to cut them off. So go through each one and do that. The next thing we're going to do is, on this 45-degree line, we are going to line up our square once again. So basically that 45-degree line is going to run straight through this line here on our half square triangle. Now we want to make this block 3 inches. So we're going to do what's in the quilting world is called squaring up. So we're going to cut this to 3 inches and this to 3 inches, and making sure that this line here is on the straight line and this line here is on the straight line. Now once we're happy, we're going to make this block a 3-inch half square triangle. Just be careful not to move it. Put your ruler down and you're going to cut. Now once you do that, that line is back at that 45-degree angle at the top there. And then I'm just going to move my mat around. I'm going to cut this back down to 3 inches. So this is going to be a 3-inch half square triangle perfectly. So go ahead and do that to the rest of your blocks. So now we're going to start building. So these are your BDs, and then you've got your A's and your C's. So with quilting, we start with rows. So we're going to do our first row. So I'm going to lay everything out as what it shows in the diagram. And then once it's done, we can sew them together. So basically you're going to have things right sides together, and then you're going to stitch them into place. Once you've sewed it, don't forget to press it down, and then we are going to add our neck sections. So I'm just going to line everybody up. And then once we've done this, take that over to the sewing machine and sew these rows together. Once again, go ahead and press, and then line up the next row. Go do my next row, this one, and this one. And you. There we go. I'm going to sew all them together and press. And let's get our last row laid out here. Sew that row together and press. Now we're going to go ahead and start sewing these rows together. So get row 1 and row 2, and they go right sides together like so. The most important thing is you're going to get these seams, and they are going to nest on top of each other. So that seam will nest on top of that one, and then this one will match the next one, and match the next one. Sometimes you might need to just pull one side slightly more than the other, but just double check that they're all nested between each other before you go ahead and sew. And then once you're happy, take it to the sewing machine and sew into place. Once that is complete, you're going to go ahead and do all your other rows. So you're going to match this one and then sew and go all the way to the end, and don't forget to press. We're going to add some borders onto this to make it to the 18 inches. So these are pieces number 1, and they're going to go on both left and right of your unit. And then number 2 border goes at the top and the bottom. What you're going to notice is there's a little bit of thread in between some of these sections that we're sewn together. So either pull them away or chop them off if they are stuck. Now bring over sections E and F. Now section E is the batting part. We have to have something in between layers whenever we're doing some sort of free motion quilting work or any kind of quilting. And yes, I did say quilting, and yes, you are going to do some. Don't chicken out on any of this sort of stuff, because we want to progress on with our experience, and we're not going to be able to progress if we don't learn new things. So I'm going to show you something really easy on how to quilt something. So that is the batten section. So I'm going to flip this over, and it should stick relatively well. And then this is section F. We're going to put this to the back here. Lay it nice and flat. Now it's up to you. You can pin if you want. What you're going to notice here is the backing section is a little bit bigger than the actual top, and you want that to be like that. Whenever you do any sort of quilt sandwich, you want your backing and your batten to be slightly bigger. So I'm just going to pin, and don't forget you've got these pins here. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to attach our walking foot onto our sewing machine. Try to get used to taking feet on and off, because that is part of the process when it comes to sewing. So this is your walking foot, and basically this is going to attach around the shank, and this part here attaches on a bit that juts out, and I'll show you. So this is the shank of your sewing foot, and then there's this bit here that juts out, and that's what that part rests on. I'm going to show you how to do this. It goes in there like that, and I'll show you another angle in a second. And then what you're going to do is tighten this back up. And have you seen how that arm goes in here? And that's how it's resting. So it rests on the shank here, and it also rests on this bar here. If you have a baby block soprano, you will have one of these. I'm not sure about any other models. I'm going to put this in my walking foot. This acts as a kind of like a ruler or a guide to get straight lines. And there's a hole in the back here. You can have it on the left side or the right side. It's up to you. And you feed it through. So I'm going to have it on the right side, because that's where my measurements are on my plate. So I can pull it out, or I can push it in, and I can put it right to where I want each line. So I'm going to rest my marker on the seam of my cushion cover, and I'm literally just going to do straight line stitching. Super simple. You shouldn't chicken out. This is super easy. My feed dogs are still up because we want them to grab both layers of fabric. I have put a regular straight stitch on to my sewing machine right now. I'm using a number 3 stitch, and I've elongated some of them stitches. So I'm using a 3.5mm stitch, and I'm just going to do simple straight lines. That is my first stitch line, and I don't want them doing too narrow, otherwise I'm going to be here until next year. So I'm going to make them wider, but when I put my guide down, I'm going to put it next to this stitch line, and then I'll put next to the other stitch line, next to the other stitch line, next to the other stitch line, so they're parallel. So when we quilt, we don't go from left to right like we just did. But I did that because I wanted to teach you something. So basically, have you noticed how the batting and the back, it's all offline now? This was perfectly straight before with the batting. Now what happens is when you're quilting it, it kind of like pushes out and stretches. Don't forget that the batten has a different stretch to this is all pieced, so this is all going to stretch differently to the back here. So generally when we do a quilt, we always want to leave like 3 inches more than the top, and we always want to start from the center and work our way out that way, because what's going to happen if you go from left to right or right to left is you may end up with no batting here or back in, and you don't want that to happen. So that was just to show you what happens if you don't quilt from the center out. Now the next thing we're going to do is we're going to trim off the excess of the batting and the backing sections. So go ahead and do that. And then you're going to have 2 G sections. What you're going to do is at the end of both of them, you're going to do like 1/2 inch and press, roll it over and press. Change your foot over from your walking foot to whatever you use for a regular straight stitch and stitch this hem into place. Have the top of your cushion facing up, and then it's up to you whether you want kind of this folded feature on the outside or not. I am going to do it this way. So this is facing down, and you want to overlap. So I'm going to show you here. So I have an overlap of about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.5 inches. See? And there. So what I'm going to do is pin these together here, or clip. I'm going to turn this over, and I'm just going to cut the excess off. So this top unit is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.5. And then this unit here is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 inches. Now I'm going to take this over to my sewing machine, and I'm going to sew all the way around. We don't have to leave an opening or anything, because this is what our envelope is for. I also recommend when it comes to these parts here that you go forward and back, forward and back. Same with this part here, because they're going to get pulled every time you take your cushion in and out, and it just gives it an extra support. Go ahead and turn right sides out, and don't forget to comment on my YouTube video, please. It helps with the algorithm on YouTube when you do that, and also subscribe and like. So I'm going to turn this out, and then we can get a cushion and put that in as well. I absolutely love how this cushion cover turned out.